Everybody, this is Dirty Red over here at the Springfield Baptist Church. This is Eric Lee, and we are grateful to bring to you the next edition, the most recent edition of the Handoff featuring Pastor Curtis Akeem McCullough and yours truly, Pastor Eric Wendell Lee. We are grateful to have these conversations, which is an intergenerational opportunity to share values, to share ideas, to share concepts, and to talk about continuity from one generation to the next. We want to first off begin by saying happy holidays, no matter what you're celebrating, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whether you were celebrating New Year's, whenever you're experiencing this podcast, we wish you the happiest of holidays, and we pray that God would indeed provide protection and prosperity in your home during this season, whether it's Hanukkah or whether it's the Nguzo Saba, whatever you're celebrating this season. We give God praise that you would take some time to be a part of our podcast. And today we've got a doozy of a conversation.
A doozy.
As soon as I saw this trending news take place, I called Pastor McCullough. I sent him some information. We're not here to solve world problems, but we are here today to discuss the recent dropping of a widely anticipated album after 15 years of silence.
Yeah.
Andre 3000, Atlanta's own Andre 3000, dropped his album to a splattering of applause.
New Blue Sun. That's the name of it.
New Blue
Sun.
New Blue Sun
Yeah.
was released some days ago, and it has disappointed, to say the least, a lot of people. And we're going to have a conversation about it because I think it's an opportunity for us to have some real handoff dialogue.
Yes, sir.
As we celebrate, as we consider Andre 3000, who's from my generation, and how his fans, who are from a younger generation, are responding to his album that we can classify really as a woodwind freestyle session.
Yeah. Exactly what it was. He said we were hearing it as they were creating it. Nothing was planned.
Yeah. So back in the day, we would call that freestyling.
Yeah.
That you're creating at the same time you're performing. And it's been an interesting conversation because a lot of people have wanted Outkast to come back.
Yes.
And we know Andre 3000 from Outkast. And I had no idea that Outkast had really done some things that no other rap group has ever done. You can tell me how many platinum albums they have. You can tell me how many millions of albums have been sold under that name and label. And it is really up there with not just rap artists, but with rock stars and with pop stars that we're more familiar with. So they've done some big things, and this has been a widely anticipated kind of launch for him.
Yeah.
But it has really turned some people off. And let's talk about that.
You want to talk about the turnoff?
Yeah, let's talk about the turnoff.
I mean, first off, I guess I'll speak for the 30s. I feel like Andre in his interview says that he has nothing to say, but I do feel he should have said something. Like, give us some bars. There's plenty of times where he makes appearances, whether it's for a Drake or whether it's for a Kanye West. I feel he could have did something.
Yeah.
Like, give me a 16, give me an 8. I mean, kudos to where you are now, Andre. I respect it as a fellow creative. But at the end of the day, we wanted some 3 stacks music, not this flute stuff.
Okay.
I'm just
Let,
being
let me just let our audience know that Curtis and I have listened to
Yes.
an interview with Andre 3000.
Yes.
I think the interview is from GQ magazine.
Yes.
It's on YouTube.
Yes.
It's about 33 minutes long, and it's from October of 2023, where he is in anticipation of his release, kind of talking about and warning people that this is not going to be a rap album,
Yeah.
but this is the creative space
Right.
I'm in right now, and I knew I wanted to talk to you about this because some people may not know, and we're gonna put the picture up on the screen, that at another point in your life, you were on tour with Big Boy,
Yeah.
who is the other half of
Shout out to Big Boy.
of Andre
Mm-hmm.
3000. You know Andre 3000. You have a personal relationship with him, and so that we're not just people off in the distance
Yeah.
throwing rocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about where you came from and
Okay.
and how that journey informs your ministry today.
Yeah, I mean, well, basically, being on tour with Big Boy was probably one of the best experiences that I had in life. Now, at the time, I didn't understand what it was doing, but it was preparing me to be in front of people. It was preparing me to be able to be around large groups of people, because before that, I was a nervous wreck when it came to being in front of crowds. So now, even preaching, it gives me a certain level of comfort because I've been in front of these types of people and all different types of people. Um, and it prepared me to just be on these stages, be in the pulpit, um, being able to deal with all sorts of personalities. It prepared me for that. And then also just seeing a creator go from being in the studio or working on their craft to now giving it to people. And I never really understood that part until I got around these big groups of people. So all of that in mind, it gives me a creative space to understand that I can create something, and I have to be fearless in my approach to giving it to people. And that's one thing that I do attribute to Andre during this album. Was Andre literally said, I want to do this because I feel like I should be doing this. And I'm going to give it to the people, whether they like it or whether they don't. But this is where I am.
Yeah.
And Andre always exuded that type of confidence to where I'm giving you what's on my heart. And whether you like it or not, this is where I'm at. And I think that goes to the conversation that we both watched, to where he's basically saying, hey, this is where I am at now. So not take it or leave it, but take it or leave it. I don't have much to say on the rap side, but I still want to give you all something.
I want to say this to you. I want to ask you about this, and then we can get back to Andre. It's a big deal to be on tour with Big Boy.
Yeah.
Right. And here you are, what, 15 years later. You're the student pastor here at Springfield Baptist Church. Somehow, in the mindset of the culture, some would say you peaked with Big Boy, and then you came down to do ministry. But to your credit, you just were in front of 86,000 people this past weekend doing what you do with marching bands. And so how do you deal with that cultural identity that says you have to be famous in this way to be successful, and being successful over here is something lesser?
I actually struggled with that when I was younger. Signed to a big artist, I'm on tour around the world, and now I'm back home. So when I was younger, I did struggle with that. But to say I've peaked in retrospect, I feel is wrong now, because I have my peace. When I was in the music industry, there was so much turmoil, so much grief, so much darkness, that didn't really allow me to even enjoy my time in the music industry. But now I'm able to enjoy what I'm doing because I'm being all of me. So whether I'm in the pulpit, whether I'm in front of 86,000 people, you're genuinely getting what God has shaped me to be. So when people would say I peaked during that time, some people might say that because that's what they want to do. But
They can
I'm
only see secular.
correct.
Yeah.
But I'm the happiest, the most peaceful I've ever been. And honestly, um, it was all in preparation because I'm under the belief that God can only use what is in you. So nothing was left wasted. So even me being on the big stage, even in that place, God still used that type of stage performance to now where I'm going from being in front of 5,000 people with Big Boy to now being able to be in front of 86,000 people and they're all locked in. That came from those humble beginnings. So when people would say that I've peaked, it's kind of like, okay, but where I am at now is where God wanted me to be for such a time as this. So I'm okay.
So with Andre,
Mhm.
um, you know, performing with Prince
Mm.
and Paul McCartney, and you know, I'm real clear that there are some songs that Outkast has done that's gonna still be played in stadiums
Most definitely.
100 years from now.
Most
I
definitely.
mean, they're iconic. Now, Andre 3000 says in that interview, "I'm 48 years old now."
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's like, all that was great, but now I'm getting colonoscopies.
So do y'all
All
want
that
me to
was
talk
great,
about that?
but now I'm raising kids.
Yeah.
All that was great, and now I'm doing this adulting thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I need for my audience to allow me to mature
Yeah.
and to show them a side of me that I've never shown them before. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Right. And
Now,
add to it, Dr. Lee, and not to cut you off, I think even in the opener where I said I didn't exactly agree with the album, to the contrary, I feel like part of the reason that Andre is so self-conscious about his music is because of people like me. And what I mean by that is we want you as we saw
as
you.
we saw you.
And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nobody really saying, hey, we want you to grow. We want you to grow old. And it's just like, I feel like part of his self-consciousness does come from people like me that still want him to be back in the Aquemini days. But I do think that now is the time for him. Andre, I'm going to say it to you. I do think that there's a group of people out there that do want to hear from a grown-up Andre. Because don't worry about the youngest. Worry about the core group. Because we want to hear this stuff. But yeah, I think
Now,
we did that.
He says, "This is who I am now."
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the maturation that he presented to us. The way he talked about rap and you know, I love the fact that he says that when they were younger, they prayed to be great artists, to be great rappers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful thing when you grow to a place where you're not praying for what you used to pray for.
You're living in your prayers now. Yeah.
Yeah, that prayer got answered.
Yeah.
And so there's another place that God. I don't. Some people would say that he peaked out with Outkast, but maybe he's telling us, maybe I haven't peaked out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I did that
Right.
so I could do this.
And I think peaks are relative. I think
Yeah.
Words like success and words like peaking are all relative because we can have our measurements of success, but does that mean that that's how they view it? Like, to your point, what happens if Andre is like, hey, I'm successful, but I'm not over with? But you have other people that think because he's not as successful as they want him to be in a certain way, that it doesn't matter. It's like, no, like, he's still successful. The fact that this man was able to create a piece of art that he wanted to put out under his own protection, under his own procurement, under his own direction, I see that as success, as being a creative, to be able to just get past.
Because nobody would have allowed that to happen
Not at all.
when he started.
If he would have went to a label and said, "Hey y'all, I
Yeah.
know what y'all want from me, but I'm playing this flute,
Yeah.
dog," they would have been like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no, give these raps. So I see that as a win, as being a fellow creative.
And so let's talk about how that relates to ministry,
Mm-hmm.
because you know, he has sold millions of albums,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got to know
Yeah,
that this album ain't going in that direction.
yeah.
He's got to know that he has released something
Mm.
that everybody's not gonna like.
Everybody's not gonna eat.
He has released something that he has felt compelled to share, but everybody is not going to embrace it. How does that relate to preaching the gospel? Because we got to preach the gospel in season
And out of it.
and out of season. And you know before you even preach, if you really in your word, you know before you deliver a sermon,
Yeah.
whether this is going to be popular or whether this is going to be hard to digest.
I mean, I call a lot of times that's when you're struggling with the text or you're wrestling with the text, because God has a funny way of always giving you what the people need to hear, even when you know that the people may not want to hear it, but they have to. And I think as it relates to ministry, that's exactly what it is. Preaching is sometimes given the hard truths. Every truth is not going to be happy. Every truth is not going to make you shout. Sometimes that truth is going to leave you scarred and cut a little bit. And you got to be okay with being the swordsman at that time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where preachers should feel comfortable at, is if God gave it to you, God's going to give it to who he needs to give it to. And it may not be accepted that day, but the prayer is that we're saying something that even if it doesn't hit today, it could hit a year from now, 2 years from now. It could be like, oh yeah, I remember when Dr. Lee was talking about that. I remember when Pastor Curtis was talking about that.
Well, here's the place where we put our breaking news graphic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to be preaching at Springfield very soon.
Yeah.
On a Sunday morning.
Wow.
And you know, we'll announce that when the time comes. But
yeah,
we know that day is coming soon. It's already on the calendar. You're going to be preaching. You already had this huge following.
Mm-hmm.
You were already Andre 3000, and now, how has your online following? How have they reacted to you being Pastor Curtis? Because you were introduced. You weren't Pastor Curtis when they first
correct
started following you.
At first, it was a shocker to people because I had never really promoted the ministry side. I was so focused on content creation that it was like, hey, ministry is so sacred to me that God really had to deal with me on understanding how something can be sacred, but it shouldn't be a secret. So for the longest, I wanted to protect my ministry. So I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to deal with that online. The people that know me, and it is what it is. But upon coming here, I realized that this following that God amassed for me to oversee or to look at wasn't just to be making people laugh. The laughter
You got some funny stuff online. Yeah.
The laughter is the candy.
Yeah.
But he's the medicine. But for the longest, I struggled with how to make it all make sense until one day, naturally, God made sense to the point where it's like he's giving me this content, but it has these underlining tones of Christian value.
Yeah. And maybe that's your doctoral thesis. Maybe
Wow.
that's a conversation that you need to take to a national stage, because we now have 2 generations of children who were born with digital capacity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got the millennials, we got Generation Z, and 86% of millennials and Generation Z, according to the stats that I've discovered, want to be or are willing to be influencers. That's like the number one professional desire of these younger generations is to be online, developing content and selling that content, or whether they're moving products, whether they're reacting to a product. I remember a kid some years ago who was making millions of dollars, and they were just filming him playing with toys.
Yeah, my kid subscribes to some of them people. So one of them.
I remember a woman getting millions of views by just cleaning her house and letting the camera be on while she's cleaning the house. So, there's this new generation, this new genre, this new profession that so many of our children are looking to, and so many of us kind of, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're kind of watching it.
Yeah.
But you've been able to forge this digital reality into ministry. And there's not a lot of people who've been able to do that successfully. You almost have to be as wretched as possible to be effective online. Right. So, what do you what do you say to that generation?
First off, with that statistic, as crazy as it might sound with me being an influencer, I cringe at that. Only because, and me and you have had conversations about this before, it was never my aspiration to be an influencer. Like Andre, I just wanted people to appreciate whatever art I was putting out. It just so happened that it clicked. But I wasn't waking up hoping to have hundreds of thousands of followers. I wasn't aspiring to try to be famous. And that's my struggle now with dealing with even my youth here and abroad, is because they're seeking that fame, they're almost willing to do anything just to get the views. And I struggle with that because on one hand, people see Pastor Curtis as the influencer, whether he's Dollar Watts and Curtis Akeem. And then how do you then help people still to understand that you should still keep some value about yourself? You should keep some decorum about yourself. So I struggle even now with that segment of occupation that people are seeking. Now, it's afforded me some great opportunities, some great places to be, but I do struggle with now people are willing to do anything to get these views. I really struggle with that. Even now, even when kids come to me now, hey, I want to be an influencer. It's like, I don't know what it is, but it's just like, I know if that's your goal, for most people, they're willing to do anything.
Yeah.
And I really struggle with that because sometimes I struggle with feeling like, am I part of the problem? Because the person that's watching my content may not know the fiber of my being. They may just came across a video, and the assumption is, oh, he hot right now, let me try to do what he does, not realizing that there's an underlying tone that I'm trying to sell, or there's something that I'm trying to give to people, or there's something I'm trying to draw people into. And I still struggle with that even now, where it's like people only see the outside of it all, but they don't understand the preparation. They don't understand realistically the prayer. I pray to God to say, God, keep me, even with no matter how many numbers are coming, how many comments, how many opportunities. God, keep my mind. Like I'm saying these prayers, even driving in my car. God, keep me.
Pastor Joshua Thomas, shout out to Pastor Thomas, Bishop Walter Scott Thomas's son, who pastors out in Gainesville, Georgia. He said content follows vision.
Okay.
Vision has got to lead content.
Yes.
Values have to be established first.
Yes.
Content second.
Yes, that's true.
And if you allow your content to shape your values, you've already lost the battle.
Right.
But you've been able to be effective because you put values before content.
Yeah, it's just certain stuff that I just won't do.
Exactly.
And it's just because also, the Don't let the boyish good looks fool y'all. But because I'm 34 years old, I'm still young, but I've lived long enough to see what it looks like when you're willing to sell your soul for $1 or for views. And I never wanted to be one of those people. Like I'm around celebrities all the time, and when I'm looking at them, a lot of them can't look you in their eyes, can't look you in your eyes. They're very dainty as it relates to being around people. They're very scared, and it's just like there's something to that.
Let's go back to Andre 3000 because he said in that interview
Yes, he did.
that he despises pretty much being a celebrity. He values what being a celebrity has brought him.
Yeah.
But he also despises. He thinks it's unnatural being as popular as he is.
I mean, and
that people are following him and that people are. I'm not just talking about on social
like
media, like
following him around phones
as he's trying to take his kids to the park.
And I've struggled with that too. Even in my little niche following, it's been sometimes I've walked into an arena and phones are in my face, and I'm just there to just enjoy, and they just expect me to just cut it on. And when I don't, now I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he ain't cool. He wasn't looking out. And I do agree with him in the space of you don't know what you're asking for until it comes. Like he said in his prayer, hey, we just wanted to be the biggest rappers or the best rappers. They didn't know that this type of fame would come with it. And I mean, to a point right here, I don't want to turn it into a message, but you got to be very specific and intentional about what you pray for.
And he clearly has a vision
Yes.
for his life.
Yes.
For the next 30 years.
Yeah.
He talked about when I'm 70, when I'm 75, and some of us, we see bright lights and we ain't thinking about 50 years from now.
And I even in my personal life, I try to look past the lights. Cause I'm like, what's funny? And I say this all the time, but God will show you what's to come. But the path, he doesn't really give you a lot of the times. You got to go through it. You got to get pressure through it. You got to get lessons through it. And I think when it comes to Andre, I think Andre has been shown some stuff and he knows where he's going. I just think that he's pressing in the way that is most beneficial to his mental and his spirit to get there. Because whatever God has in store for you, you're going to get it. Yeah. Like, I don't understand the whole thing. Are we going to miss it? No. God's timing is everything. It's just if your timing is off, that's on you.
Man, he talked about timing in a very profound way. Now, back to this influencer thing. I shared this in a sermon recently that nano influencers are people who have between 1,000 and 10,000
and
followers.
They're making money.
Micro influencers have people have 10,000 to 100,000 followers. Macro influencers have between 100,000 and 1 million followers.
And I'm considered macro.
I'm nano. You are macro.
Yes.
But what I love about your macro is you don't look past the 50 kids in the room.
Not at all.
In order to address the 1 million that's in the world.
Because these are the kids that are under my care, under my spiritual care. And I take the Lord's work very seriously. So God, whether you have me in front of these 30,000, 80,000, whatever, these are the kids that you've put under my care to shepherd. These are the kids that have direct contact with me past Dollar Watson, past Curtis Akeem. They know me as PC. So there's much more of a responsibility to me there because these are the kids that don't care about me being famous no more. They see me every week, sometimes 3 times in a week, 4 times in a week. So now it's we don't care about that stuff. We know PC, we know Pastor Curtis. So I take that as more of an honor, and I love that even more because a lot of the times I like when people get past my follower count. I love it. Because now we can get to do the work. These kids aren't coming because I'm Curtis Akeem, the influencer. They're coming because we want to learn the Bible. And that's even a blessing within our church to me was when the kids come to me and say, we want to learn more Bible. So it's like now I really get to exercise my mind spiritually.
Yeah.
Because on the social media influencer side, I can go out there and say 1, 2, 3, and somebody's gonna laugh. Do that same thing here, the kid's gonna be like, give us something. So I like still being able to exercise the spiritual gifts and be able to bear fruit on the kids that have been put under my care.
And the the ministry equivalent is, you may not be pastoring the church you want to pastor,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to pastor the church you have
Mm-hmm.
in order to get to the church.
Mm-hmm.
You can't neglect the church you have,
Right.
to become the church you want to be.
And I think that'll be irresponsible to do anyway. Like, I take God's work very serious.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, me personally, I'm not even looking at, and some people might say this is a bad thing, I'm not looking at what's next. My thing is like, God, this is where you have me planted. This is where the best work up to this point of my life is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I take his work very seriously. And I do feel God blesses the person that takes care of his house or any facet of it. So I'm not even looking at what's next. It's like, God, this is where you have me. What's next for these kids?
Walter Kimbrough, oh my God, Pastor Walter Kimbrough, I heard him say, we never get to the future.
Mm.
He says,
Oh wow,
we can't do anything about the past. Mm-hmm. We can't do anything about this. All we have is the present.
Yeah.
This is the only place we have the ability to bring some level of agency to.
Yes.
And we, it's how we manage our present that really defines our future.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for Andre's release. I'm grateful for this old hip hop head who, is teaching a generation that change is constant, and don't put us in a box.
Yeah.
Give us room to evolve and grow and develop, and don't expect me to preach at the age of 55 the same messages I preached when I was 25, because I've had some growth, I've had some experiences, I've had some changes where God has matured me, and shame on us if we're if we haven't.
And I got a question for you, Dr. Lee, to the same maturation conversation. How Andre expressed struggle. Do you feel struggle as you mature in ministry, as things evolve, as you gain more knowledge? Did you feel that same way?
That's always a struggle. I don't know. You're always, you're always growing. You're always evolving into something. And, there are some seasons you have more momentum than others. But even when, Joseph dealt with 7 years of prosperity and 7 years of famine, sometimes the hardest thing is to manage the 7 years of prosperity.
Yeah.
When things are great.
When things are going great. Everything is going right.
Because, hey, there's going to be some lean years.
Yeah.
And how you manage the lean year, how you manage the prosperous year says a lot about how the more infrastructure you put in the lean years, in the prosperous years, will give you the ability to manage during the lean years. Like, with the pandemic, Springfield was blessed that we had infrastructure. We had online giving. We had streaming services. We had cameras. There's a lot of churches that are still, trying to recover, to bounce back and recover. And so, even in this post-pandemic age, there's always something to struggle through.
Right. So,
and struggle is not a bad thing.
It's not. It sucks at the time.
Sweat is a blessing.
Wow, sweat is a blessing.
And I'm talking to sisters who just got their hair done. Sweating is a gift. Sweating is really a gift.
Mm.
And, I'm just, I believe, the way Jacob struggled with God, there was a blessing on the other end of that struggle.
Yes. So I got another question for you. So with that, pastoring 24 years, Springfield Baptist Church. We talked about feeling like was there any struggles or anxiety around that? Do you ever feel like people seeing you after 24 years, do you ever feel stale personally, or because of the bond you have with the people, that they're willing to eat whatever you're putting on the table?
Oh God, no, I never rest on the laurels of what we've done.
Okay.
Um, I'm always looking for a fresh anointing.
Okay.
And I don't. A couple of years ago, when we had a 140th, we had a milestone anniversary, and I was trying to find a tagline, and I found what I thought was the perfect tagline: Springfield Baptist Church, yesterday's miracle, tomorrow's mission. That we need to pause and celebrate what God did, but we should never forget what God is doing.
Yes, sir.
And truth be told, I'm moving into a place where I believe God is about to do some things through us that we never thought was possible. I'm more excited about the future now than I've ever been at any point in my ministry.
Okay, so I got a random question for you. It's on par, but I do want to ask because you did bring up me preaching here. But at what point does a pastor feel comfortable with letting any of his ministers grace the pulpit? What is that? Like, when is there, whether it's Pastor Matt, whether it's Pastor Bowie, whether it's Pastor Russell, whether it's me, like, where does it click to a Dr. Lee to be like, you know what?
I think God is speaking to all of those ministers, and God is speaking through all of those ministers, and God's revelation through them may not always be at the microphone, but I believe that God is speaking through all of us, men and women, who are called. Now, having that, when it comes to inviting people to the pulpit, it's because you feel like God has convinced you that that you're going to bless the people. That somehow the person that God put in your heart to invite is going to advance the cause of Christ, and in a way that even in a way that I'm not. And so being able to have such a unique voice and a unique gift is a real opportunity to see the church advance. So it's not so much about elevating the preacher.
Yeah, got you.
But will the preacher be able to advance the people?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
that's what I always wondered, because you see some churches where the auxiliary ministers or the auxiliary pastors, that doesn't happen. That pastor's preaching every Sunday, every Bible study. So
well, there's certainly a rule of thumb that
and now I want you to break that down, only because then you have, I mean, we've already had our young preacher, old preacher conversation before, but there's some pastors now that are my age that are barely in their pulpits. They're pastoring churches, but every time you look up, they're preaching somewhere else.
Yeah.
And somebody's preaching in their house.
Yeah.
So just go ahead with what you were saying.
Because that's a really long conversation. But I think it's you know, you can brand the gospel
Mm.
or you can brand the preacher. And I think a lot of us
Mm.
are branding our own personal ministries
That's good.
more than we're branding the gospel.
Y'all got that down?
And more than we're even branding our church. And so
Wow.
people
Yeah.
talk about our churches, they say Lee's church
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
Spring. We don't want that.
Mhm.
They say, this is such and such's church and don't even know the name of the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I've always felt like the sign at the church,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest sign should not be the pastor's name,
Mm-hmm.
should be the church's name.
So,
Um,
and being as humble as you are, and I say this not just because you're my pastor, but I
I'm-
really mean this.
and I work at being humble. I try. You, you'll have the devil on your shoulder every now and
Yeah.
then saying you ought to take credit for this.
See,
You ought
no,
to take credit
that's
for
what I
that.
was just getting
Yeah.
to. I was like, are there
Yeah.
moments in Dr. Eric Wendell Lee's life to where you sit back and you almost get caught up in, look, over 24 years, what I've been able to accomplish? Have you ever had to correct yourself, or have you always beaten the devil to
Thank
the
God
punch?
I've only had to correct myself in private.
No, I'm saying even in private,
Because
are
by
there
the
moments
time
of
I get,
correction?
I always, because it's more than just you. It's always
Mm-hmm.
more than just you, and nobody gets to that place by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and where we're going next, it's going to be bigger than me.
Mm.
So yeah, that's kind of where that is, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm excited about. I can't wait for 2024 to get here.
So it's almost
Because
here.
I believe that it really will be exceedingly abundantly above all we could ever ask or think, and it ain't gonna happen overnight,
Yes, sir.
but there are gonna be some things that we're putting in place that are gonna have impact in this community
And I,
for decades to come.
all right. And I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you another preacher question. As you've been preaching 24 years, when do you decide that I can take a break or I can take it?
Ooh, wow, that's going wow.
When do you say, you know what, we've built infrastructure, I can
Oh
chill?
my,
Or
oh my.
is there a moment, or do you want that moment?
Pastoral sabbaticals. I'll answer it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Pastoral sabbaticals are becoming more and more common.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I know that wasn't always a thing, but
yeah,
yeah.
and I believe, yeah, I mean, I don't, I believe that you know we got enough anointing that one monkey don't stop, no show. I just believe that, we whatever that looks like, yeah. So I'm excited about that. But listen, this is I guess it's time to wrap this up.
I think
And it's holiday season.
holiday.
Do you cook?
I try not to.
That's probably a good thing.
I try not to. I'm basic with mine. Like when I was a bachelor, the crock pot was my greatest thing ever. Put anything on there for 8 hours, you seem like a chef. Baked chicken, spaghetti. But shouts out to my wife, the great Mia Trinae McCullough. She gonna be mad at that because she kicked me out her kitchen, and I've been eating good ever since.
Yeah. And I come from a family
Mm-hmm.
that is like, you need not go to the kitchen. Just let them do their magic.
Yeah.
Just Caribbean Southern cuisine
Mm-hmm.
and a whole bunch of spices and stuff. And I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I could never duplicate this, so why even try? But yeah, I do get down on the grill. And there's a couple of dishes I like to make.
Give
And
me
my
give me
favorite
top three. Can you give me top three?
top three dishes.
Top three dishes. What is on Dr. Eric Lee's
Man, I love doing rib roast.
rib roll? Okay. Okay.
Um, I'm working on my brisket,
I want to try one.
I
I'm
tend
afraid.
to overcook that, but
Oh, so you tried it already?
I got a rib recipe that they won't even let me enter into the contest.
I'm afraid to do ribs
because it's awesome, huh?
I'm afraid to do ribs.
Yeah. So I want to also just make people aware during this holiday season. I want to recommend a couple of things. There's a Netflix special called Stamped from the Beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on Ibram Kendi's book, Stamped from the Beginning, African American History. We're reading Black Cake for those of us who are going to be a part of our book club. Please get online and sign up for the book club. Read the book before you watch the series. Please read the book. There's a series on Hulu. Read the book before you watch the series. I want to also tell you that The Color Purple is in theaters on December the 25th. I urge you to read the book there before you watch A Color Purple, which is based on the musical. My wife and I had the opportunity to premiere The Color Purple movie, which comes out on Christmas Day. It is fantastic. Fantasia is in it, and it's wonderful. And I also want to encourage people again to sign up for Black Cake. On December the 14th, we're going to have an in-studio book club conversation about this very important topic, which is about family, family secrets, and family restoration. And I certainly pray and wish family restoration on everybody during this holiday season. Would you take us out?
Take us out. How we want to get up out of here? All right. Dr. Lee kind of put me on the spot, but listen, y'all. This is holiday season. My prayer is that you have an awesome one. Say I love you to somebody you normally don't say it to, and remember that family is everything. So work on restoration even now. Other than that, I'm good. Now we didn't do sneaker cam, so we're gonna do it at the end, right now. We should just show mine because Dr. Lee has on another expensive pair of shoes again. Dr. Lee, can you tell the people what you have on today?
These are Versace's, but I will tell our listening audience that when it comes to expensive purchases, always be willing to buy used. I do not buy new cars. I buy used cars. And my drip sometimes is a vintage, gently used. I never pay full price for anything, and neither should you.
Who's giving Dr. Lee this vocabulary? Did he just say drip? I don't even say drip. Who's giving us vocabulary? But y'all ask me, man.
I got on kids, man.
I got on some Dunks today. I'm just regular. I'm just the youth pastor. You know, when you become a senior pastor, maybe you could wear Versace's to do a podcast then. But until further notice, y'all, we love y'all, Springfield. Don't forget to give. We have a numerous amount of ways to give. Realm, which was our #1 portal. You can come drop it off at our box in the back. But Realm, it absorbs all of the fees. So everything that you give comes that way. So use Realm. All right. And
That's great, man.
I'm making sure. I'm just making sure you use Realm, people. Come on.
Cash App, Givelify.
Cash App, Givelify. But listen, do the Lord's work and use Realm. Push pay, all that stuff. But go back to Realm. Somebody turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'm going to use Realm. All right. Other than that, y'all, this is the pastor of this great establishment, Dr. Eric Wendell Lee, my pastor. I'm the youth pastor, Curtis Akeem McCullough. And y'all, this is episode 4 of the Handoff, Generational Conversation. We love you all. Eat good. We out.
How many flutes do you have now?
I ordered 3.
3 flutes.
I'm dropping the album next week. Don't worry about it.